Hello everybody, welcome to OCHD and welcome to another Jumputi Heroes video. The last in my little set of free videos talking about the lead up to the 5th anniversary. If you haven't checked out those other videos, please do, and hopefully by the time this video goes up, the whole event hasn't leaked and we haven't had loads of teasers and all this stuff, because this video is me trying to genuinely work out what we might be getting. Now, we have virtually no information to go off of, so that's gonna be tough. That's gonna be tough. What little we do have, I'm gonna just try my best, and we're gonna see what we come up with. Now, bear in mind, while we're trying to be sort of realistic with our predictions, that does mean that this event might not appeal to a lot of people, or it might have certain things in it that people think are either boring, or, you know, we're covering the same stuff too much, or, you know, it's maybe not the same sort of fanciful delight that the other predictions video was. And well, there's not a great deal I can do about that. If we're trying to be realistic, we know what these devs are like, and there's certain things that are guaranteed to be here. And to be honest, I probably even didn't go hard enough on trying to be realistic when I was making this. I probably should have tried a little bit harder to... There was just certain things I didn't want to include, realistically, but maybe I should have. I don't know. We'll see. Let's start off with what little information we do have. First of all, we know that they are going to be releasing a new transforming unit during this anniversary. They haven't said whether it's just one or whether there will be multiple. They haven't said whether it's going to be a free-to-play unit or a limited, but we can assume there will be a limited transforming unit. They haven't said much in the way of like what series it'll be from or anything like that, just that there will be a new transforming unit. They have also said that there will be a new ability called multi-chain. Multi-chain already exists in the other Wonder Planet game called Crash Fever, and the way it works is if you have a character with the ability, say, multi-chain blue, that would mean that if you chained any other bubbles, let's say for example yellow, it would also chain the blues with those yellows. So if you chain blue, it will just chain blue, but if you chain yellow, it will chain yellow and blue. You chain red, red and blue, so on and so forth. Potentially quite powerful, in some cases maybe not as strong as we'd like it to be. I guess it really depends on how it's implemented, who gets it, and what the restrictions are. But an interesting ability nonetheless. Unfortunately, that doesn't really give us any indication of who the character that gets it might be. I mean, they normally introduce new abilities for like anniversaries and stuff, but is this the ability that the Musa / Densetsu is going to get? Is this the ability that the, you know, like one of the limiteds is going to get? It's kind of hard to say. And let's talk about the Musa / Densetsus, because there's been a few now. We have a total of 7. Each of them is from a different series. We haven't had any duplicates yet. Even though I do feel like it will come, there will be a character or not a character necessarily, but a series that gets one Musa and one Densetsu or something along those lines. Definitely looking at the One Piece for that. If you watched my roadmap video, you'll know that that's the line I'm thinking across, but there's definitely other series that could fall into that trap. So for now, assuming that we're not going to get any duplicates for this anniversary, that already rules out 7 different series, and that's including some of the biggest series in the game. So that's a pretty big deal. No Dragon Ball, no Naruto, no One Piece, no My Hero, no Hunter x Hunter, no Reborn, and no Hoshinengi. That does sort of restrict the options we can work with. Of course, there are hundreds of series in Weekly Shonen Jump, and we've already got over 100 in Jumputi, so there's a lot to pick from. But even with a lot to pick from, trying to pick characters that are going to draw the money in the same way as some of these characters is actually a little bit tough, especially as it seems like they're avoiding protagonists for now. Maybe there'll be some other thing after Musa and Densetsu where the protagonists will be involved. I don't know. But when you roll out the protagonists, I feel like the options are even slimmer. And yeah, this is gonna be a little bit tough. I think it's also worth mentioning that the anniversaries and the half anniversaries and the units that appeared outside of those, they're treated very differently, I feel. You know, I don't feel like, say, for example, Fuki is a choice they would have made for an anniversary. Maybe for a half anniversary. In the end, they've just sort of chucked him out in between. Ging, I guess, was a possibility for an anniversary, but in terms of Muso and Densetsu that have appeared during actual full anniversaries, we've only had Vegito and Goldie Roger, characters from the biggest two series pretty much in all of Weekly Shonen Jump. So I think we can expect something pretty damn big. Now, initially, I was thinking that the Muso or the Densetsu or whatever would be from Black Clover, Lumiere. And I wouldn't say I'm ruling this out. It's still entirely possible. It still very much could be him. Or maybe there's a couple of other potential candidates from Black Clover, actually. But I decided I didn't want to go with a character from Black Clover. I also decided that I kind of wanted to look at a character that's not so much like a past thing happening in the past, and is more something happening in the present. I know he does show up in the present, but that's where it gets a little bit techie. I don't know. But I've decided that I don't think it will be him. It's definitely possible, but this time I don't think it will be him. And we'll talk a little bit about that decision in a moment. Now, in terms of last little scraps of information, and it's not a lot, we have some information on reprints. First things first, we know that the Battle Rush stages are returning to the game as part of the countdown to the anniversary. So these are going to be coming up within I think in about a week or so. You're going to see these stages start to pop up again. They normally only come back for like a couple of days, and I think all of these are here for like 2 days or so. And make sure to clear them when they do come back. You get rubies, you get jewels. Yes, it's a little bit tedious going 25 stages, but it's not that difficult, especially with like modern units. You get some good rewards. I don't think this has any bearing on the characters we'll see. This is quite typical for anniversaries. And I don't think we're going to get the mystical 4th Battle Rush. I think 3 is where they're stopping, and that's that. But we have some other reprints. Now, these reprints indicate to us... well, I don't know what they indicate to us, but what I do know is they tell us the rough dates we will be working with for the anniversary. We know the start date for the countdown. Obviously, we know the date of the anniversary is the 28th, so the event will start from there. And then we know when the event will conclude. So let's take a look. Okay, so here it is. The anniversary, the countdown is going to start on the 24th and run until the 28th, and then the actual event will run from the 28th. And these are the events listed to be reprinted during this period. This selection... I mean, you can probably see a theme. These are sort of all themed around one big bad enemy. We've got Yhwach, we've got Majin Buu, we've got Madara Uchiha, and we have Kaido. Funnily enough, Kaido is the only one that's like not actually obtainable from any of these events because he's unlimited. But besides the point. We also have the stage at the bottom, which is the Miracle Tree event, which is like a collection stage. They're going to put a bunch of rewards in the store. You collect these leaves by farming the stage. You can trade them for rewards. And then these are the 4 stages. Now, what does this tell us? I don't know. I've been thinking about this quite a lot, and it really might just mean nothing. But it's really weird to me that they've chosen the specific characters, because say for example if we were talking about the Musos from all these series, well, for a start Bleach doesn't have one, but let's assume it did. the Muso from One Piece is Roger. Roger fighting Kaido is not something that I think we've even seen in the manga. Like, I don't think that's something that even happens. If it does happen, it's like it's something like so long ago in the past. I don't even know what's going on. But more importantly, it's not something that happens in Wano. It doesn't happen on one of these stages. Hashirama, sure, countering Madara makes sense, and Vegito countering Boo makes sense, but it's a bit weird. So is this indicative of characters we're going to see added during this event? Are we going to see a new character that fights Yhwach? Are we going to see a new character that fights Boo? A new character that fights Madara? A new character that fights Kaido? I don't know. I think at least for the character that fights Kaido, I think you can all think of one. I think for the character that fights Madara, I think we can think of maybe one or two. There are options here. Even for the others, there are options. So this is where it gets interesting, because it's not like any of these stages are like unavailable all the time. So some of them might be like I think the stamp one for One Piece might not always be available, but it's not like all of them are unavailable. Some of these are available in the logbook all the time, but they are coming back during this event, reprinted probably with half stamina and a ×2 drop or something like that. It's weird, right? Because for One Piece, if it's like, oh, we're gonna have a Wano theme thing, they would have brought back Big Mom, but they didn't. They didn't bring back Kaguya for Naruto. Like, this is really interesting selection to me, because it really feels like they're focusing on these specific 4 characters. Now, one question that did pop into my mind is, could we be seeing potentially a Dark Heroes event? Could it be like it's a Dark Heroes event and there's like 4 factions? It's like, which faction are you going to join? Are you going to join the Quincy's? Are you going to join the Margin, you know, the Beast Pirates, or the Akatsuki or something like that? That would be really cool. I don't think it's going to happen because Dark Heroes has kind of been forgotten at this point, but it could happen. Remember, reprints are not necessarily indicative of anything, but I just find the selection they've made interesting, because they could have easily just reprinted a whole bunch of stuff, and like even if they were just doing specific arcs, there would be more characters here. So it's the fact that they've chosen specific characters. I don't know. I don't know. I really don't know what to make of it. And while I haven't necessarily taken it into account with my predictions, it has been dancing about in the back of my brain, and it's maybe dissuaded me from choosing certain characters that I might have. So I don't know. I don't think it's going to be a Dark Heroes event, but if they decided to, that would be nuts. But then who would the Muso be? I don't know. But I'm really curious as to what this event is going to be now. Because like lots of options have popped up in my head. Like, for example, what if we got a new standard gacha, or like, yeah, free to play Ichigo, Goku, Naruto and Luffy, or something like that. But then we don't, like, do we really need it? I don't know. Like, it's tough. I'm thinking this means nothing, but because I tend to overthink things, I have overthought this a lot, and I really want it to mean something super special, awesome. I would love a Dark Heroes anniversary event, but that's not what I've come up with. What I've come up with, maybe a bit more straightforward. I don't know. Let's start off with the Muso / Densetsu. Looking at these, and I didn't really take these into consideration too much, but it did trigger a thought in my head. We had the 4 Heroes Legends summon, and we've recently had like the protagonist stuff. Well, we had the protagonist stuff from the 100 Fest. We had it again here. Ichigo, Luffy, Goku, Naruto. 3 of those series have a Muso or Densetsu. 1 does not. And something we've mentioned before in the past is, will Bleach ever get one, and if so, who will it be? Now, I feel like with Old Man Yamamoto, he seemed like an obvious choice to me. But there's a problem with that. He kind of gets killed by somebody that's like super unimportant. But also, we kind of already got the version of him that's like the definitive one, like the final attack from the final fight. Yes, of course, you could have like the other abilities he uses in that bit and give him like flashier animations and stuff. Like, you could still do it, and I think that would be fine. I think people would summon for that. But for me, it's not. I don't know. It's not the best. So I've heard a lot of people say maybe Ichibe from Bleach. From Bleach? Well, yeah, obviously from Bleach, but from Squad Zero. And while I can see what people are saying for that, and you could even have him and like, I don't know. He's a bit of a jobber. I'm sorry if you're a fan of the character, and I don't disagree that like I'd like to see him added to the game at some point. But Musa / Densetsu's got to be something a little bit special, right? And for me, he's not. He just kind of he shows up too late into the story for me to really consider him that special. So I was like, who's a character that like we know about from Day, who we know is strong, but we kind of don't really know the reality of it until Thousand Year Blood War, and is like considered a super important character and is sort of pulling the strings in a lot of the stuff going on. And I've come to the conclusion that the best man for the job is Kisuke Urahara. I think, bear in mind, by the way, 5th anniversary, and he's considered the 5th of the 5 great threats to the Quincy's by the Soul Society. And I think he actually makes a lot of sense, especially because with Musa, we kind of felt like, oh, can you really do like a character that's like a version 2? Like, that doesn't feel right. But with Densetsu, we can. We know we can. Now, there might be an argument about popularity. Well, he's actually one of the most popular characters in Bleach. Even in the latest of the popularity polls, he was one of the most popular characters. So, ticks the box there. They obviously could put Bleach on a pedestal. They give it feature festivals all the time. It's, you know, they did the 4 protagonist thing. It was one of the 4. Like, they've invested a lot into making sure we got a good Ichigo, and they give Bleach a lot of attention. So that's a tick as well. And he's supposed to be super powerful. Like, the guy he's fighting in the final arc is like a pretty damn strong Quincy. They always have this thing in Bleach where there's this one character that seems like they don't give a fuck, and then it turns out they are ridiculously powerful. And he was one of them. And you know what? I really back this choice. I don't know whether other people will. Probably not. But I really back this choice. I've been saying it should be a limited for ages, and they haven't done it. And I'm hoping that's because they're planning to do this. Alongside him, I have taken into consideration the fact that they said they would give us a transforming unit. And I have also thought about multi-chain. Now, obviously, Urahara makes sense for multi-chain. I think if Limiteds had multi-chain where it was like, if it's a green unit and they can multi-chain yellow units, then that could be quite useful. But for like a Densetsu, it's got to be a bit stronger than that, right? It's got to let him chain like block bubbles or something like that. That might be a little bit broken, but if it's set behind a condition, it might work. I don't know. But definitely there's like little things you could do to make it really strong for him. And it makes sense for him as a character, the man of infinite means, to be able to connect bubbles that he shouldn't be able to connect and stuff like that. But in terms of a limited, who would you choose? Now, I have chosen 2. I have chosen 2 that, to be honest, I really wanted one of them. And the other one is like, I'm not against them being added, but I felt like it was more of a bit of a boring pick. But probably the far more likely out of the 2. So I just decided to put both. And whether they both come or not, I don't know. Maybe they'll never come, but, well, one of them's going to come eventually. But we'll start off with the first one, the slightly more boring one, but I think the one that's more likely to come, and that is Tanjiro Kamado. I think I see him as a transforming unit, a blue unit who can transform between water breathing and fire breathing. I'm not suggesting a unit that can change type, but I think that might be a bit tricky with balancing. I think he stays as a blue unit, but I think when he uses water breathing, he gets the blue multi-chain, and when he's fire breathing, he gets the red multi-chain. I think that would be potentially quite good, and I think you can make a unit like this work a lot better now, because say for example the like flat damage thing where it's like this unit can inflict red damage, blue damage, and it's like a set number. I feel like there's a way you could do that where you could make units more viable doing stuff that's not necessarily indicative of their main type. I don't know how you balance that necessarily, but like with anniversaries, typically speaking, things tend to escalate a little bit in terms of balancing the power of characters. So they'll probably just release some cracked Tanjiro that can do blue damage, red damage, whatever you want. Now, I did initially think of this as like a free unit, but then I realized we haven't had a standalone limited Tanjiro in a while. And I feel like for every series, they want the protagonist to have like a limited that's come out within the last like 2 years that's like a strong version of the character. Or not even within the last 2 years, within the last like year and a bit almost. Like, because we've got like Sage of the Six Paths Naruto, we've got like Transforming Asta, we've got Transforming Goku, we've got Ichigo with the Horn of Salvation, all that stuff. Like, Tanjiro doesn't have one of those. He does technically appear in some dual units, but even that, the last one was like January last year. So yeah, I think this makes a lot of sense. The one I was originally thinking, and the one I was a lot more sold on, was Todoroki. Same thing, actually. I think in this case, a red unit that can do, you know, multi-chain with red, multi-chain with blue. Like I said, depending on which type it was, the freeze version or the burn version when he transforms. I like this a lot more as a limited. Todoroki doesn't have a limited yet. He's a super popular character in the series. So this made a lot of sense to me. But when I realized that Tanjiro seems a lot more likely, I started thinking, I don't know. So for this prediction, I would say both. I would say both. And you know what? It could happen. And this would be a nice way to introduce like a new archetype. You've got a red unit that can chain red or blue. You've got a blue unit that can chain blue or red. And then you could also have, like, later on we could do the same with green and yellow. It's a possibility. I won't say it's a probability. But I think that's, considering I'm only going for like sort of super popular stuff here, I don't think that's a bad little lineup. Now, I do think we will get one more limited, and I think that will just be a Taiwan recycle, and that is Kakashi. Even though I have put Kakashi here like as the like extra slot or whatever, I do think they'll release Tanjiro last, and I think they'll do like a Kimetsu. I mentioned it in the roadmap, Kimetsu no Yaiba anime new season release campaign, and I think they'll reprint all the Kimetsu no Yaiba stuff, and then Tanjiro will sort of be running alongside that beyond the bounds of the anniversary, and obviously Urahara will also be running beyond the bounds of the anniversary up till the end of the month. So I think Kakashi will probably come out like day one of the event, or sometimes they release one on April 1st. But that would be the last limited. 3 limiteds and a Densetsu might seem like it's a little bit much, but considering it's like a 3-week event and they've been just piling on the limiteds the last like 6 months or so, I wouldn't be surprised. Then, in terms of hero grade units, I think we'll go back to an old style of doing things. 2 standard gacha units on a banner that's sort of like the general hero banner for the event, and then 1 boost banner that maybe comes out a little bit later. For the boost banner, I would say releasing Karin Aoi as a standalone hero makes a lot of sense to me. We don't really know if those series they said for the 55th anniversary are definitely only coming out on the 55th anniversary, or whether it's like in anticipation of that, here's a bunch of series we plan to release, and then it would be okay for us to get one of them here. But I think she makes, to me at least, she makes a lot of sense as like that kind of boost gacha standalone hero grade unit, in the same way that like we got Cobra as a hero grade standalone unit, and like Doko from Saint Seiya and stuff like that. And it'd be nice that she'd be a hero. I really don't want her to be an event grade unit, so I guess we'll see. We'll see on that one. And then the next two heroes I think are probably I wouldn't say they're like nailed on, but I'd like to see them at some point. I've chosen Reiji from World Trigger because I don't know if we're going to get another World Trigger feature festival. We might do, but it's already sort of had like an event and a half, and I don't know whether the devs consider it to be popular enough to get like event after event after event like some other series that will remain unnamed. But Reiji feels like a character where it's like, it's kind of weird that he's not already here, so might as well add him in an event like this. Why not? I think I'd quite like to see him. And next to him, Zebra from Toriko. I've predicted it so many times. I've been wrong so many times. At some point, I'm going to have to be correct. He's got to be standard gacha so we can have a standard gacha. Toriko, Coco, Sunny, and Zebra. And he's the last one. He's the missing piece of the puzzle. So hopefully he gets added. Would be pretty cool. Then, event units. To start off, the campaign unit. We always sort of have a campaign unit for anniversaries. You might remember Brook being one of the campaign units. You might remember transforming Luffy being one of the campaign units. It's normally a One Piece unit. But I think for this campaign, remember, we're talking about a character that should be able to introduce the concept of multi-chain whilst being a free-to-play unit. They did this with Goku and Luffy, introducing the idea of a dual unit, but obviously the restrictions were a little bit different and they weren't as strong. So same sort of thing, and I have chosen Gotenks from Dragon Ball. No title this time because this is actually the base form Gotenks. The other two have the titles, so that's fine. And I think that kind of makes sense, doesn't it? For like a multi-chain. I mean, it's two characters in one, so then being able to chain two different types of bubbles makes sense. Again, I'm probably wrong and it's probably going to be a One Piece unit, but I feel like Dragon Ball is popular enough that it should be able to get a campaign unit. I haven't done much else for it in this event, but if we're mentioning the 4 series, like I'd like them all to get at least one little thing in this event. So why not give them Gotenks? And then for the counters, even though there are 3 limiteds and a Densetsu, I've only prepared counters for 2 of them because the devs, you know, they'll probably do like some emblem stages and stuff instead. But the first one is obviously Askin Naklavar from Bleach, because that's going to be the person that Urahara counters. I feel like that has, like, if it's the Muso Densetsu, they have to counter something unless they're one of these ones that's released like in between. The in between ones, they don't have to have a stage to counter. That's fine. Don't worry about it. You're just scamming us. We're getting scammed. It's not important that there's good content there because we're getting scammed. But if it's an anniversary, they got to have a stage, in my opinion. And so this is the person that Urahara fights, so this is what must be added. Then we have Derby version 2, and I expect this to be a very strong free-to-play unit. I expect it to be a very popular free-to-play unit. I expect him to have an amazing aura costume and amazing special animations. There might be an argument that some of this is sort of like a little bit too far ahead in the My Hero Academia story. I don't know how far the anime is, but I doubt it's this far. But don't really care, if I'm honest. I want to see this. I feel like a lot of the really cool stuff that they could have done with My Hero Academia, they keep skipping over. So I'm hoping they won't skip over this. Then we got some more free-to-play units that are kind of not related to anything in particular. Just because I want to see them, basically. We've got Sally from Black Clover. Remember, a lot of my picks have been made based on my observations on how the devs operate. I've tried to pick characters that don't necessarily tie in to other big story arcs that are probably going to be covered soon in feature festivals. So I didn't want to pick anything from too recent from Black Clover, but I did want to add something from Black Clover because the devs just are obsessed with Black Clover. So I've chosen Sally. Whether or not she actually has a realistic chance of getting in, I don't know. But the chance of there being a Black Clover unit here is high. Then we have Kaseki from Dr. Stone. Same sort of thing. Although I would argue Dr. Stone has a lot of potential for another feature festival. So they might be saving him for a standard Gatch unit. Whereas with Sally, they wouldn't save her. They don't care. But as long as he gets added at some point, I don't really care what kind of unit it is. I'd just like to see him added to the game. And then from this little set, the last one, Lau Milch from Take Your Hitman Reborn. Guys, I know you're probably looking at this and thinking he's covering the same bloody series as every anniversary, but these devs do this. That's why I'm making these selections. If I get even one of these characters correct, I'll be very surprised. But I'm just trying to put together something that I could see them doing, and I could definitely see them doing this. And then the last three are a more... I would say these are a lot more realistic. The first one is Gon, who was already added to the Tier 1 server, was not added to JP. I think we will get his like catastrophe class stage that just gives like rewards like jewel fragments and stuff. It's not actually a farmable stage. I think his farmable stage is not going to exist on here. I think he's actually going to be added to like Sparks of a Lost Civilization or something like that, because we are expecting a new Sparks unit. You know what? He won't be added to Sparks because we already have a Hunter unit in there. Maybe he'll be added for Super Tower. So I don't necessarily know if this will be part of the anniversary a little bit later, but I think he will be added soon. Then possibly for the new medal store unit, because they did promise us a new medal store unit, Zenkichi version 2. I know some people would like to see this as a limited, but I'm trying to consider units who have limited potential, who the devs would be willing to shaft. And that was a name that came to mind, I'm afraid. So he has unfortunately been shafted, but kind of makes sense for him as a character. So he has been put, in my head at least, as a medal store unit. And then last but not least, I have added Killer from One Piece. This one would probably be the Sparks of a Lost Civilization unit. And the reason I've chosen Killer is because it's so weird he's not here. We literally did a worst generation event and they had a sprite for him and they just didn't add him. That's mad to me. Like, what's the point? I don't get it. So I think, considering he does play a role in Wano and they are absolutely obsessed with Wano, there you go. And that is my event. I'm sure people will have lots of opinions. Many, I'm sure, are negative. Let me know what you think in the comments. What would you have done differently? And that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed, and hopefully the next time I speak to you, I'll have some actual news on the anniversary, and we'll be well on our way. Until then, see you next time.